Hello. Did you notice last week we didn't do Hallelujah and we didn't do the other one? Yeah. It was fun last week. It's fun. After the fact, it was fun. No, well, it was nice that they all appreciated, being here, and they said we were warm and welcoming and explained things.
Okay. So sorry about the delay. We had to beg forgiveness from Microsoft, who decided to update as, why do they do that? Like, they should give you, shouldn't there be an option, I think so. Anyway, Shabbat morning, a time to leave aside the complexities and challenges of our lives and think about the grander experiences of creation. We have this beautiful display in front of us that only happens in this part of the world, and it's truly amazing to watch the colors and all the beauty of God's creation. And so as we begin on page 74.
The page numbers are in black.
There are two sets of page numbers, because there are two versions of the book. There's a big version and a small version, and we use the smaller version, which has Shabbat and weekdays, right? No? Yes. No, just Shabbat.
Just Shabbat. Yeah.
Just Shabbat, and the other version, the other has weekdays and holidays in it. And then there's another version of the book that has everything in one volume. Yeah. So, okay.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenatecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenatecha Yisrael.
We turn together to page 76, and we join in two different blessings. One blessing that is a blessing for our bodies and the part that makes us who we are, and also the blessing that follows, which is the blessing for our souls, that which makes us who we are as people. So we join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, uvara bo nekavim chalulim, galui v'yadua lifnei chisei chavodecha, she'im yifatech echad mehem, o yisatem echad mehem, אי אפשר להתקיים לעמוד לפניך. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומחלי לעשות. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. We'll join together in the English on the next page. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. And on page 80, we have a series of one-line blessings. Those blessings which seemingly are there to thank God for the mundane, but without which we wouldn't be able to wake up and start a new day.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasek vivina l'chavhin ben yom u'ben laila.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokev kefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ruka haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten li'aev koach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir sheinai me'enai utnuma me'afapai.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani b'tselem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shesani bat horim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozir Yisrael b'gvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Alter Yisrael b'tifarah. And our blessing for study and for worship begins top of page 86.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Adonai our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamed Torah la'amo Yisrael. Page 88. Elu divarim she'en lahem shi'ur. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. Together, they are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We turn together to page 94. Well, 95. Centuries grow old and fall apart, nations decline, torn. Generations grow moss and gather dust. Still, every morning a chapter of Psalm stands by the window in the synagogue and intones its eternal chant over the world's tears. Turn together to page 96 and join in Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, a psalm, a song for Shabbat.
Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov L'Hodot L'Adonai, Ilzomer L'Shimchad Elyon, Ilzomer L'Shimchad Elyon, L'Hagid Baboker Chastecha, Ve'emunatecha Ba'leilot, Ale Asar Ve'ale Navel, Ale Higayon Bechinor, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, Ilzamer l'shem kad elyon, Ilzamer l'shem kad elyon.
And on the following page, we join responsively in Ashrei, the acrostic poem of praise to God.
Ashrei yeshvei beitecha, odilachun chasela.
Ashrei ha'am shekacha loho, Ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai Elohav.
Tehillah leDavid, aromimcha Elohai ha'melech, v'yavarcha shimcha le'olam va'ed.
B'chol yom avarchecha, v'ahalela shimcha le'olam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai umhula me'od, v'lidulato ein checher.
Dor ledor yishbach ma'asecha, uvratecha yagidu.
Hadar kavod hodecha, b'divrei niflatecha asicha.
Ve'zuz naratecha yameru, ugdalatcha asaprena.
Zecher rav tuvcha yabi'u, v'zichacha yiranenu.
Chanun v'rechum Adonai, erech apayim gedor chatzed.
Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav hakol ma'asav.
Yaduch Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yevarchucha.
Kavod malchucha yameru, v'iratecha yidaberu.
Lehodi livnei adam gurotaha, v'chod adar malchutoho.
Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador.
Zomech Adonai lechol hanoflihim, v'zokef lechol hakfufihim.
Einecha elecha yisaberu, v'yata noten lahem et achlam be'ito.
Poteach et yadecha, u'matzpir chai ratzon.
Sadik Adonai b'chov derachav, v'chasid b'chol ma'asav.
Karov Adonai lechol korahav, lechol asher yikru b'emet.
B'son yireach ya'aseh, be'et shav atam yishma v'yashien.
Shomer Adonai et kol ohav, et kol rashim yashmid.
Tila Adonai yidabir pi, v'yivarecho b'sar shem kacham le'olam va'ed. Ve'anachnu nevarech ya,
me'ata ve'adonam.
Hallelujah.
And we'll continue page 223.
Meaning 105?
Sure, 105. Yishtabach Shimcha le'ad malkeinu, you shall always be praised, great and holy God, sovereign in heaven and on earth. Songs of praise and psalms of adoration become you, acknowledging your might and your dominion. Yours are strength and sovereignty, sanctity, grandeur, and glory, always. We offer our devotion, open our hearts in acclamation. Baruch atah Adonai, El Melech Gadol Batishbachot, El HaHodaot Adon HaNiflaot, HaBocher B'Shirei Zimra, Melech Elchei HaOlamim. We rise together for Chatzi Kaddish, page 106.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
V'yamai divra chirute, v'yamlech malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayede kol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uv'izman kariv, v'maru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach, le'alam u'lomei omaya. Yitbarak, yitbarak, v'yishtabak, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitraman, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitalel, v'yithalal, shemei d'kedusha, b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran b'alma, v'maru, amen.
On the following page, page 108, we continue with our call to worship, Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach,
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Vaed. And on page 110, we continue in the middle together. Please be seated. Praised are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy you illumine the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom you form them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Page 113. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Please rise as we turn to page 114 for Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated, and we'll continue on the following page, page 116, with V'ahavta.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anohi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uv'leftecha v'derech u'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu latatefot b'neinecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kadoshim le'elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem,
Adonai Elohechem
Emet.
Page 117. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when, to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives and we can begin to change the world. And then you live in our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. Page 120. 121. Let's join together in the middle of the page. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else. May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war any more. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asks God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
And we join in page 122, our Song of Freedom.
Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, no ratahilot, o sefela, o sefela.
מלכות שירה חדשה שיבחו גולים לשמך שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Sor Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvdechinu Mecha Yehuda v'Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Zevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ga Yisrael.
We rise together as we turn to page 124 for the Amidah.
Adonai Sifatav Tiftach Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Gula Lifnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshiach Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham V'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'elam Adonai, Michaye HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Umorid HaGashem, Mechachel Chayim B'Chesed, Michaye HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, so make no flame V'Rafei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Ba'al Kivurot, Umido Melach, Melech Meimit Michaya, Umatmiya Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Michaye hakol. Nekadesh et shemcha ba'olam, Kashem shemakdishim oto b'shmei maram, Kakatuv ya neviecha, V'kara zel zer v'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Zevaot, Melochol haaretz, Kivodo, Adir Adoreinu Adonai, Adonenu Ma'adir Shimcha B'chol haaretz, Baruch Kivod Adonai, Mimkomo, Echad Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, V'Hu Yashmienu, V'Rahamav Le'nei Kol Chai, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Yikzion, Ledor Vador. Hallelujah. Ledor Vador Nagid Gad Lecha, El Netzad Netzachim, Kedishachag Nadish, B'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated as we continue page 132 with our Song of Joy. What are you going to do? Yismechu?
Sure.
Okay. You pick.
Together. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreg oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreg oneg Shabbat. Mechadashei Shavi Shabbat, Kulam Yisbehu Ve'yitaku Mitu Ve'chabad, Yismechu Ve'malchutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreg oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi rasitabo v'kidshat Shabbat. Chemda yamin ato karata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreg oneg Shabbat. Zecher lema'aseh v'reshit Shabbat. Zecher lema'aseh v'reshit Shabbat. One more time. Yismechu v'malchutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreg oneg Shabbat. Thank you. Yay, that was fun.
Page 137. Retzei Adonai Eloheinu, ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Page 140. Let's join together, actually on page 141, in our blessing for peace. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Ta Adonai, amirech et amo Yisrael, v'shalom. You want to sing
No.
Sim Shalom?
No.
Okay. We're very quick to not sing that, Pam. I don't know. Okay. Page 142. We take a few moments as we leave the text of our prayer book aside and look inward to those thoughts, those prayers that are in our own hearts and minds. A few moments for silent prayer.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imaru, amen.
We turn together to page 253. There we find our blessing, our prayer for healing. There are so many ways that healing can happen in our world. Healing of body and mind and heart and soul. Healing of people. Healing of countries. Healing of societies. And in this, often we look at the current events and the events in Israel or in Ukraine or other parts of the world. We see so much death and so much destruction and so much hurt. And so we send our blessings and our prayers for healing to all those who need. And in our congregation, we especially mention Martha Snyder, Don Shames, Serena Danu, Sharon Johns, James Chavez, Diane Levy, Fred Solomon, Jeff Pinsky, Larry French, Sherry Gayampa, Barbara Shapira, Zach Scherbel, Lyle Jackson, Kobe Castellano, Arlene Sandlestein, Joan Coleman Rosenthal, Jenna DeFazio, and Rabbi Brad Bliefeld. If you are joining us via live stream and have any name that you would like to add, please add it into our chat. If you are here in person and would like to add a name, please do so. We join together.
Mi sheberach Avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Well, this week in our Torah portion, we are reading Parshat Noach. So that can be found on page 59, the larger volume. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the basic story of Noah, which is God said, build an ark. And of course, Noah goes and builds the ark. But before that, we have a description of the current situation before God speaks to Noah. And it begins, Ele toldot Noach. These are the chronicles, the generations of Noah. Noah ish tzaddik. Noah is a ish tzaddik, which means an ish is a person, and a tzaddik is somebody who's righteous. Tamim, pure. Haya b'dorotav, amongst his generation. Now, it's interesting that there's a qualifier, right? Because somebody's either a good person or not a good person. But it seems that the text is qualifying this and saying, well, Noah's the best we got. Right? He's the best of his generation. Now, you can either read that as saying he is the best of the generation, or he's the best of the generation. Either way, you can read that. But this week especially, and this year especially, the text goes on. Vayoled Noach shlosha banim. So Noah had 3 boys. Their names were Shem, Ham, and Japhet. So these are the 3 sons. Oh, sorry, yes. Well, so he's ish tamim haya b'dorotav, et Elohim hitalech Noach, and with God Noah walked. Or he was seen as somebody that God could relate to. Right? He was somebody that God could depend on. Right? He was. This is part of his identity here. He's seen as somebody who is not evil. Right? But we don't actually know anything's evil yet, because you've read ahead. You read ahead. We haven't read that. In the text, there's nothing wrong here yet, right? All we know is that he's this great guy, that he has a relationship with God in some way. It's interesting that we don't have very many times in the biblical text where we define relationships with God in this way, of walking with God. That's a fairly obscure way of doing it, right? I mean, when you describe relationship between God and Moses, it's panim al panim, so it's face to face. When in other places you might describe it as he knew God, But this is active, right? This has a sense of an action to it. There's movement. There's a flow to this. There's a connection here, and it's interesting because, of course, what is God going to ask him to do? To do something, right? It's one of the few times where, often God says to Moses or whoever, go here, go there, say this, say that. This is one of the only times where God actually says, make something. Do it. You got to create something. So he's got these, and then he has these 3 boys, and that sort of rounds out his, the introduction that we have to Noah. Here's where the text conflicts, or not conflicts, but sort of powerfully connects to what's happening today. V'tishachet haaretz, and the land was corrupt. Lifnei ha'Elohim, before God. V'timelei haaretz chamas, and the land was filled with violence. There are lots of conversations that we can have about what's going on in Israel and all the rest, and we talked a little bit last night, and I won't rehash everything, but I think all you need to know is the 2 names. Israel, those who wrestle and struggle with ideas of God and what God wants us to do, and Hamas, violence. And therein lies the definition of what is happening. Right? There has been incredible violence. And what the end is, I don't know, and I think that there is great wrestling going on in Israel, certainly about what to do. You can't continue to live in that circumstance, and you have to deal with what's happening. So we'll leave it there. But it's fascinating that you have this text that comes at this time. You know.
I say that I've seen a couple of interviews where normally the need that will come in and have to come off the page. I've seen more than one interview where it come off the head. And my understanding is they need to do it.
Well, it is with a chet. I mean, the Arab word is violence. I mean, there's no question.
Well, another thing is it's one of the resistance to
But it was not chosen. Yeah. I mean, everything has meaning, right? I mean, acronyms have meaning. You know, yes, it's an acronym for that, but clearly, this is not an accident. Yeah. Good. Well, look, there are lots of, the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, was in an interview, and it's a brilliant interview, and he says, look, if you shoot rockets from your kitchen or your living room, what am I supposed to do? I have to respond. And essentially saying, I mean, yes, this is a horrible situation. It's a horrible circumstance, and it's a tragic loss of life. But at a certain point, what am I supposed to do? Right? I can't live in a country where you are fearing that you are going to have these horrible, I mean, beyond imaginably horrible attacks at will. And that, so the only thing to do is to remove the threat. So as painful as it's going to be, and, friends, we're just at the beginning of this. They haven't even yet begun any sort of ground incursion. Well, right. I mean, if I have the choice between being, criticized and whatever, and alive, or honored and dead, I'm happy to be alive, right? I mean, and I think that's really where everybody is. I mean, there's only, you have to put it into its larger context of 20 years of rockets. And we could put up with the 20 years of rockets, and we could put up with the building, cement bomb shelters all over our southern cities. And every so often there's a rocket, and every so often you have to run to your shelter, and every so often you can live that way. But you can't live with babies being burned and decapitated, and kids being killed and taken hostage and raped and whatever at music festivals, and whole communities being attacked. You just can't live that way. So there are very few choices here. And I don't know that I'm quite certain that no other country in the world sends advance notice to say, look, we're bombing these buildings, you better get out. And while it's true that there's not a whole lot of places to go, there's not a whole lot of choices. And while we regret the loss of life, Hamas is there planning the loss of innocent life. That is their goal. While we regret the result of loss of life, and we do, But for Hamas, the loss of innocent life was their main goal and main directive. As many innocent people as possible. So, we all hope and pray that there is some miraculous resolution, but we're not holding out a lot of hope. But we will see what the coming days and weeks brings. Maybe you have to build your own, right? And the ark come in many different forms and shapes. So, with that, let's continue with Aleinu, page 282. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'atei gedula yotzer breshit shelo asanu kirei ha'aretzot velo samanu kishmachot ha'adama shelo sam chalkenu kahem v'goralenu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Noteh Shamayim V'Yosef Haaretz U'Moshe V'Yikaro B'Shamayim Imal U'Shchina Tuzo V'Govhei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Einod Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato Kakatu Betorato V'yadata Hayom V'hashevota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hua Elohim B'shamayim Imal V'al haaretz mitachat eino V'nemar v'haya Adonai Lamelech al kol haaretz V'yom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad.
Please be seated. Our thoughts turn now to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those who our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, and I have to say that phrase means more than I would ever have hoped it could have meant in the last couple of weeks. We also pray for those of all and every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. And as we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and of death. And on this Shabbat, we observe Yartzeit for Alec Fisher, Lillian Davis, Joseph Falk, Richard Goldberg, Clara Kallman, Abraham Levi, Minnie Weil, Jay Alexander, Jack Blumberg, Kate Jacobs, Meyer Nast, Eva Ostro, Fischel Kurek, Muriel Davis, Balbina Oppenheimer, Frida Rosenthal, Abraham Goldstein, Charles Schulman, William Morris, and Samuel Rose. If you are joining us via live stream and you would like to add a name, please add the name into our chat. And if you're here in person and you would like to add a name, please do so. And so we turn together to the words of Kaddish, page 294. Please rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divrach v'rutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Ulameh Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekutsha B'richu Le'ela
Ushirata.
Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran b'yalma v'imru.
Amen.
Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh Shalom b'mromav. Hu Yaseh Shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We will gather together in our library in just a few minutes as we transition to Torah study. Yasher Koach, Pam, thank you.
Like casinos, they like beaches, the touristy places.
Yeah, no,
So,
not my
no.
jam.
How are you, Logan?
Good. How are you? Sorry I interrupted service right at the end.
Good.
You're fine.
Eric, can you say something?
I'm still here. What time is it for you?
Perfect.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, we can't hear a word, but there you are.
Yeah, I can hear all of you. Sounds like
that's
you got a good group.
Okay, try it now.
You're still waiting to hear me, eh?
We got it. Perfect.
Good.
Hello, Marcy.
Shabbat shalom. Yes, you're sick with COVID.
Oh,
No,
no. Oh,
no.
I'm sorry.
Right after my sister's wedding, so I'm assuming everyone else there has got it now too.
Oh, no. Well, mazel tov on your sister's wedding. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. How many days in are you?
It was weird. So I got tested on Monday because I had a cold and I didn't have COVID. So everything was normal, was just masking, attending classes. And then yesterday I drank tea and I was like, this tea is the most flavorless tea I've ever tried.
Oh,
So my friends were all like, okay, go to the nurse, get tested again. So I went, got tested, it's COVID. seems I'm case 0 at the college since no one else has gotten COVID yet. So fingers crossed that I didn't spread it.
Regular decaf, light, darker. Rabbi, do you know the cream's coming out? Okay. We had them last week. Sure.
I look at my. That over there for you when it comes out in a second. I'm good. Okay. Hello. Hello. I'm Logan. Pat. Nice to meet you. Oh, two more? Excellent, excellent. Okay, give me that one back. You guys can use.
Tea, hot chocolate,
I'm good, thank you. Appreciate it.
Logan, coffee, tea.
I'm okay unless it's already made.
It's already made.
No, then I'll help you guys.
No, I'll just bring it over to you. Thank you so much. It's already in the cup. Like, go get it. Rob, do you have a camera in the room, or at least tell us who's there?
You do.
Are you having coffee? Shabbat shalom, all. Hello, Marcy. Hi, Liliana. Yeah. There they are.
There we go. Thank you.
Hey, Sue. Hey,
Hi.
Eric.
Hi.
Hi, Liliana. Hi, Sharon. Hi, everybody. Ooh. Thank you for my coffee. Yes. Did Brad make yours? Yes. Okay, good. Thank you, Brad. You're the best.
You want this? This or
All right, let's go. There were.
I brought you back there. There you go.
So, where are we?
We just finished every 16.
16. One.
I don't know.
Where's Carla and Nina?
I know.
Slacker. I wasn't here last week, so you got.
Yeah.
Neither.
Craig, what'd you do last week?
Oh, where do we?
Oh, we did. Let's see. We were in.
We finished chapter 5.
We did finish 5.
Yeah.
So we're ready to start 6.
That's it.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Just say.
Sorry.
So we're First Kings, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can shoot. Was it a mark?
What do you?
No, do you mind if I sit next to you?
No, here, you can, here.
No. I just want to use the seat. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I want to use the seat. Oh, also there in the wheelchair.
Sure. Here, I'll move over.
Change.
Give me some space.
Say, Rob, would you mind doing introductions for all of us? So lots of people I'd like
Yep.
to know.
So, Brad's making coffee,
Good job.
and we'll let everybody just do a round of introductions. Marcy, since you're you're on my first, whatever, I'll let you go first.
Hi, I'm Marcy. I'm currently over in Maine Maritime Academy at college. So, hi.
welcome.
And Mom?
I'm Liliana Moret, and I'm mom. And I'm in Toronto, actually in a suburb of Toronto, but
Good, Sue.
Sue West.
And then we'll start on around here and
okay.
just look at the camera over there.
I'm Luba. I'm been in this temple for more than 25 years. And I love it.
Great.
Okay.
Just really loud, Pam.
Hi, Pam and Craig.
On the Craig half. Logan. Pat.
Leslie,
I'm Brad. I make the coffee.
and he does a good job.
Thank you. Excellent.
And we are Sue and Eric.
Good. We're on King 6.
Yes,
One King 6.
the beginning.
Okay.
First Kings, right? 6.
Does anybody need the text on the screen or no? We're good? Okay, great. Okay, so let's join together in our blessing for study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asuk b'divrei Torah. Very good.
What part?
Page 719, not in that book. You're in First Kings, and you want to move to chapter 6. So, Craig, do you want to do a quick what we did last week?
Well, basically, Solomon was setting up his, what do I want to say, the workings of his kingdom, appointing, the bureaucracy, so to speak, who was running the temple. And we're looking at all the little idiosyncrasies of that. The big thing was the size of the temple and the number of people he had to provide food for daily. I think it said that, if I remember right, 60,000 people a day had to be fed in the temple. So he set up this ingenious system where the country was divided up into 12 provinces, and each province was responsible for 1 month of food supply. And that way, it didn't put a drain on the entire country. They took turns providing feeding the bureaucracy. So that was pretty much the whole chapter, who got appointed and how they sustained them.
Yeah, lots and lots of names.
Yeah, lots and lots of names.
All right, and so I think part of interesting, pieces to this is really the infrastructure that has to get set up to run this organization, right? It's really set up like a broad organization, right? You have all of these people and all of these things that have to happen. So imagine all of the different jobs that have to happen in the temple, just to make this work. This is not just a small little, endeavor here. This is a very large national organization. This was, for all intents and purposes, the national center, right? This was where you had the seat of at least community religious expression out of this one area. This was not simply just something that a few people went to. This was broad scale and popular.
Well, and
populist.
The temple has not been built yet. So once the temple's built, you've got to superimpose a whole nother system, like you're saying, in this other system, because as you're saying, the temple is this whole other system of people and bureaucracy and everything. It's got to be put in the one that already exists. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is no small endeavor. And he's clearly making a decision here about creating hierarchical structures and institutional structures and all of that.
We want to go back to 5 because we had a rabbi question. What was the relationship between Hiram and David?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The literature specifically said something along the lines of David loved Hiram,
We
or
need to look at the Hebrew and
Right.
see. Yeah.
Did say Ahava, John.
Okay, where? King Hiram was tired.
5:15.
Okay, so King Hiram, We've got verse 15 in chapter 5. King Hiram of Tyre sent his officials to Solomon, and when he heard that he had been anointed in place of his father, for Hiram had always been a friend of David.
But the Hebrew didn't and there's another translation that said that he had always loved David, or
Yes.
he had loved David, or
So the Hebrew, right? So the Hebrew begins there. So he sends us in the Tachat Avihu. So he is placed as king in place of his father. Ki ohev haya Hiram leDavid, because there was great love, because he had great love for David.
right.
Right. So this, could be relationship between these two rulers. Right. They had great affection for each other.
Right.
This could be some kind of personal relationship.
Right.
I mean, we have allusions to the fact that David may have been gay
With Jonathan.
Right? He has this very special relationship with his friend Jonathan. The subtext, or you can read anything you want into these texts, right? So, but it is different. We don't have this love word in very many places as it relates to friendships.
And we really got into the conversation of the people who chose to translate it as he had been David's friend, even though the Hebrew actually specifically says he and David had a great love. I mean, and your mom read that out for us. But
Go, Mom.
But so that was a discussion we had. We just weren't sure if the translators purposely dumbed it down, or if it was.
Well, the translators are putting their spin, right?
Right. Okay.
The translators are putting their, and any translation is an interpretation.
Right.
Right. So if you're dealing with a translation that is a translation essentially from the 70s, right?
It might be uncomfortable for you to put it the way it's written.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know that I don't know that they were looking for it. Right. I think today sometimes we're open to it. We look for it. We can see it in ways that we weren't really looking for it before. Or maybe we were afraid to see it. I don't know.
But there's love between brothers, and there is love between. It's not the sexual love, but it is a love.
Modern day use of the word love, but this particular use of the word love is usually used for something more romantic, right? So it's when Abraham loves Sarah, or Jacob loves Rachel, or
They have another word for love. No, I don't think so.
well, I mean, in modern Hebrew, there's yedid, which means like dear one.
Okay.
But there, this, it's also unique, right? Like when, what you would have to do to really do this properly is you would go to the concordance, you would look up every place the word love is used, and see how many times it's used in a romantic context versus an unromantic context, and then determine whether or not that's really what's intended. And that's how you would really, figure it out. So if anybody wants to take on that project,
Where's Andy?
right?
He had been for Hiram, friend of David. Is that what they're questioning, the friend?
Now we get a six.
But I think it's fascinating that our text actually opens the possibility of that. Right? That these two, I also don't know that it's so plausible, right? I mean, you think of these two kings, right? What are the chances that these two kings are actually going to have a romantic, relationship, right?
It had been 30 years before. I might hear when they were young.
Well, but one's living in Tyre and one's, it's not like, it's not like you can just go to Connecticut. Right? But it's not like it's next door. This is, so maybe they were infatuated with each other, maybe they were, connecting in some way, who knows? we don't have a really good, we don't have the notes, right? We don't have the notes. Like, it'd be great if we could go back to the notes and ask the authors, well, why did you use that word? If you were interviewing the author of the Bible, right? Wouldn't that be great? You could say, well, I was reading along and I didn't really understand, why did you use that word? And that really is what the rabbis have always struggled and written around. So, we would go back to the commentaries, and I don't know if Safaria,
They were all in Hebrew.
okay, I can take a
Every
look.
one of the commentaries was in Hebrew. So
Right. Well, yeah.
we did look.
Okay. So we can take a look at that if, again, so you would take a look at where else is the word love used and in what context. You would go to the commentaries and see where they were, what they say, and all of that. But it certainly is a possibility and a way of reading that text.
And in the Torah, it is used on only second time. When Joshua, David's relation with Joshua, and this relation with this king.
You can just click on the commentary.
In other places, it was not mentioned, at least husband and wife. So.
I'm just reading through the commentaries here.
Not only are they Hebrew, some of them are Hebrew without vowels.
Well, they're all Hebrew with that vowel.
I think there are a couple with vowels, but most of them have no vowels. It's like, yeah.
But most of the commentaries don't usually have vowels.
Okay.
Yeah. And only because they assume that you're familiar enough with.
If you're taking enough time to read the commentaries, you should be able to read them without.
Well, but the commentaries never had vowels.
Okay.
Like they were written without vowels.
Rashi was in English. Makes me a lot easier.
Rashi's also was written with Rashi. Not only was Rashi written without vowels, but Rashi's was written in his own script, his own version of the Hebrew character set,
Wow. Okay.
just to make life even more fun.
We need to write our commentary because very often we open the questions that was not opened.
Yeah. We'll call it the Saram.
Yeah, by others. So.
Thank you, sir. Yes. Okay. Sorry for taking us off.
No, it's good. Okay. So here we are, chapter 6, right?
Mhm.
Somebody want to read?
The 408th year after the Israelites left the land of Egypt, in the month of Ziv, that is the second month, in the 4th year of his reign over Israel, Solomon began to build the house of God.
Okay, huge, right? This is your huge beginning. This is something that hasn't yet happened before, right?
Mm-hmm.
David wasn't permitted to build it. None of the previous prophets or king, this Saul, no. Why Solomon?
Given by God.
Okay, but why all of a sudden do we need to build?
No, he promised, God promised.
I did read a commentary.
He told that I don't need, I never ask for the building. How much I communicate with you, I never ask for building, but after them, I don't remember what happened. And he promised that when David asked him for building, he told you was involved in war too much.
Right, so David's prevented from building because David's seen as his hands are dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he's been involved with war. Not only has he been involved with war, but he's also, he's been fairly corrupt. Right, he had this whole episode with Bathsheba's husband, and he's not been the most exemplary sort of leader, and they don't want him to be seen as the one building the temple.
Solomon hasn't had a chance to be corrupt yet, so
He'll get there.
well,
But what's funny to me is that we're gonna invest religion in the political leadership, not with the strongest leader, who's David, but the smartest leader, who's Solomon.
Yeah.
Nice. Right, because Solomon's the one who's setting up all these structures.
Well, not only that, but there's 6 or 7 lines in a row saying he's smarter than all of his neighbors. He's smarter than all the reasonable countries. He's the smartest guy who's ever lived. I mean,
Now we
really,
know
a cop.
Brad make joke. Now we know who wrote the book.
Right. So, Pam, keep reading.
The house that King Solomon built for God was 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. The portico in front of the great hall of the house was 20 cubits long, along the width of the house, and 10 cubits deep to the front of the house.
Okay, so to paraphrase Bill Cosby, what's a cubit?
Not paraphrasing, that's quoting.
Right.
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 Doesn't it have to do with the length, like the elbow to the wrist?
Right. So the most consistent measure on humans
Right.
is the distance from wrist to elbow.
So if you have Shaquille O'Neal standing next to you, you got 2 different cubits.
No, but it's most consistent.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not, I mean, if you take
The average person.
the average person or most people, that measurement is about the same. Right? Your legs are different, your hand spaces are different, your lots of other parts of anatomy are different. If you're going to pick one that is the most consistent, that's it. And so that seemed to be a cubit.
So
I guess for measuring purposes, it's kind of easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's kind of a small space, isn't it?
Well,
Well, you've got, I mean, it's 20 wide. It's, it's 20, whatever. So it's more than 20 feet.
Come on. I thought a cubit was huge.
Okay.
I didn't.
no,
No.
Just some that it's this right here.
but that would be like a manageable piece. Say it was, wood.
When you
manageable
measure,
to carry.
when you measure, it is
Yeah, so
comfortable to
here's the
measure
commentary.
by this.
Go.
Says there are varying opinions regarding the length of a cubit, ranging from 18 to 24 inches. According to most opinions, though, a cubit is a bit under 23 inches, 0.576 meters.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I was
basically,
gonna say.
Noah's Ark was 600 feet. When you think about it.
How big was his?
What is do you know what Irving Finkel is?
Know the name.
So he found he was doing a whole thing about Noah's Ark. They found some tablets, and they were describing an ark, like how you would build this ark. And it's 6,000 some years old, like this tablet. And it's kind of I don't know.
Well, this is basically the scriptures version of a blueprint.
Yeah.
And it's telling us, here's your blueprint.
Right. I mean, he's describing the layout of this place, right? It's this long, it's this wide, it's this tall, it's got this and that and whatever. And okay, so keep going. Sorry.
He made windows for the house, recessed and latticed. Against the outside wall of the house, including the great hall and the shrine, he built a storied structure, and he made side chambers all around.
Actually, is there a purpose to having it say recessed and lattice? Was there a class difference if you had recessed windows back in the day versus?
They didn't
just-
have glass. They didn't have glass, I don't think. So if it's
Well, there's no
recessed,
glass, right? Glass doesn't, that glass, we don't have glass windows for another way more.
Glasses.
Windows. I mean, glass windows.
It is
Way later.
opening.
But so was recessed, was that a sign of stature or something versus just?
I think it's open and latticed, right? So it's got decoration to it. It's got, it's not simply just an opening.
Okay, so it was beautified as opposed to just a window.
Beautified, but additionally, it is help airflow because it is
Close it.
it is hot place. You need air to flow to be able to breathe inside.
Okay.
Good point.
Okay.
Who else wants to read?
Where are you finished?
Verse 5.
I'm starting with 6.
Against the outside wall of the house, the outside wall of the house enclosing the great hall, and the shrine. He built a storage structures, and he made side chambers all around. The lowest story was 5 cubits wide, the middle one 6 cubits wide, and the third 7 cubits wide, for he had provided recesses around the outside of the house so as not to penetrate the walls of the house.
Okay,
Wait,
so
is
there's
it-
a whole lot of, detail in terms of the construction of this. It's got these little recessed spaces. It's got
But it's
these little,
also, it's upside down.
Inverse pyramid.
Yeah.
what do you mean?
6 feet on the bottom,
5,
7 feet in the
6.
middle, and I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
5, 6, and 7 cubits. It's built like this.
Right.
Okay, that's sustainable.
It is interesting structure.
What I struggle with is it's just not very big. If a cubit is,
2 feet even.
Yeah,
a foot and a
No,
half.
it's not.
it's a very modest structure for what it's supposed to be.
Right. I mean, we can argue about a cubit being 1, 2, 3 feet. It doesn't really matter. Right.
Still,
But it's, even if it's whatever, it's still a small structure. It's not a palace, I mean, it's not a cathedral kind of a space.
It's not even this.
It is to have place for the ark
Mhm.
and
Right.
and make a worship place for the Levites and
You're not putting a
Aaron to
congregation in.
do this.
True.
So
It was a
sure.
starter home.
It was a starter outhouse. I mean, it's not that big.
And,
I think
and
you all are forgetting how big your guys' houses are. This is, and for back in the day, this would have been a very reasonably sized structure, especially since you would not be having the same amount of visitors that you're going to be having, and even an average synagogue these days.
Good point.
and in the ancient world, structures were very, very small.
Yep.
I mean, when you go and you see the architectural ruins and you see these rooms of houses from even Second Temple period, they are very small, and those are the opulent, sort of mansions that you see. The average, person lived in a very, very small indoor complex.
Also, the worship would be for the people, would be outside in the courtyard, the sacrifice and all of that. So this was just the administration part, where the priests would go and keep their whatever utensils. Okay.
Okay. When the house was built, only finished stones cut at the quarry were used, so that no hammer or axe or any iron tool was heard in the house while it was being built.
Okay. In order to do that,
That's a nice image.
that takes an incredible amount of planning.
You cut the spaces and you fit the stone into it.
Because usually what you do is you take the raw stone to the place you're building, you cut it to whatever size you need, and then you take the next stone. In this case, if you're not using any cutting materials or anything cutting in situ, then you've got to have planned all of this. I need such and such stones cut to this and this size. And unless you're going to run back and forth between the quarry every time you're putting in one stone, which you're never going to do, because that would be ridiculous, right? You could never do that. You'd actually have a list of the sizes of stones needed, right? This is an amazing forethought that you have to do to build this thing.
And they work with stone they cut stone with stone and with wood. They make opening and wood was inserted and water was dropped on the wood, so it is become wider and help to cut stones. And after them, they use more stronger stones to polish it and made it without using any metal, because metal was forbidden to use on stones. I don't remember where, but it is.
That's different. That's to build the altar.
Okay.
So yes, we're forbidden from using that. But they say here that they were using, axe and hammers.
No, they weren't
No,
using
we're
that.
not.
Is it?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Wasn't
They were kept at the quarry were used so that no hammer or axe or any iron tool was heard in the house while it was being built, which means that they were using these iron tools and the axes and in the quarries.
why they use? Because it was, I remember it was somewhere
The altar is not to be used with
only, only for the altar.
yeah, only for the altar.
Okay.
Then what's the point of saying that the iron tool was not heard in the house?
It's
It's-
loud. Go on.
It seems like a nice reference to the altar. That is, there is some sort of reverence in building this house.
And also
What are you
this,
building?
A house for the altar.
Yeah,
No, what are you building?
house for God.
Yeah, you're building God's house.
Yeah.
Right. The last thing you want is the
The cacophony, the clanging, the
Right.
disruption of peace.
right.
It seems.
I'm still thinking along the like you're thinking that, that you don't want a weapon to be building your
well,
stones.
and it could have been that as well, right? That while this isn't the altar,
Mhm.
and we are going to use finished stone, we're not going to use those weapons in God's house.
Okay, this is what Ramban says. The Torah decrees that the stone altar may not be made of hewn stone. That's the altar.
The altar.
For you will have raised your sword over it and desecrated it. That's Exodus 20:22.
Right.
The Mishnah explains that both metal tools were prohibited because the altar is intended to prolong a man's life, and iron is used to shorten a man's life. It is not fitting that the shortener should be applied against the lengthener. And that's wrong.
They only talk about altar, but do they talk anything about the temple stone?
Yeah, and it goes on to say that, as Rabbi said, that they use metal tools at the quarry, but not at the building site,
Interesting.
Okay.
except for the altar stones. And the altar stones had to be hewn with whatever.
It's back to.
By God himself.
Well, the altar stones were probably used just by natural stone. They would have collected natural stone.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of, I've heard an opinion that there's this miraculous animal that eats worm that eats wood and or eats stone, and they use the worm to this is Mishnah, and animal eats the holes, and then they had these wooden instrument like a wooden wedge that they put in with a hole in it, and they pound a peg into it, pour water on it, and then the stone expands. And it's they
The
have
wood expands.
these holes a whole long a whole line,
Mhm.
and when they expand all the same together, they split the stone. But yeah, like I said,
Yes.
the Mishnah, they got to add supernatural element to it, and the worms were the
But
supernatural element.
it is actually the practice even now. Some places who work on stones, they use this technique. But if they don't want to use metal, they use stones that is harder. The harder stone, and this hard stone, use it as a tool to make holes, and after them wood inserted, and it is cracked, and more of that, this harder stone, use it to polish the stone that is not so hard, and bring to.
Okay. So beyond all of the specifics and everything else, why do we need all this? Like, why do we need all this detail?
It makes it special.
Just to show how significant it was, or
It is significant, and it brings the question about the use of tools and why you use these tools and why you don't use these tools. It is give educational part. And so I don't know.
I mean, it's an interesting conversation about ancient building techniques, I suppose. Right?
Yes.
But it does give us an insight into the importance that this structure is to the community, right? This is not simply somebody's house, right? We have other stations where they built cities.
Mhm.
That's all we know, right? Here we have this whole long conversation but you got to do this, and you got to build it this big and that big and
just
this
like
big,
the
and that,
ark,
right?
just like Noah's Ark.
The Mishkan, we had a whole description of that.
Right, that's
Right?
true.
When the desert tabernacle, right? The desert sanctuary.
Right.
There's all of these details. It's got to be so big by so big, and it's got to cover it in this wood, and then dolphin skins. Where you get dolphin skins in the middle of the desert, I don't know, but okay. You know,
No, but dolphin skins is not necessarily the skins of dolphin. It is fish that called dolphin
yes.
Where you get that?
too.
Still-
And
Okay,
it is could be the just skin of goat or sheep, but it is special developing of the skin called dolphin. Because of that, I did research on clothes, and it is possibilities that it is just named for skin specially built for
Yeah, I mean,
something.
Even the building of a sukkah, I mean, is that straight from the Torah?
No.
No,
that's the
that's,
Talmud.
okay. So,
It says it has to be this big by that
Right.
big, or at least this, and at least
because I was
that.
just thinking, well, it's still a special structure.
No, it's similar. They take their nod from that, right?
Okay.
It is mostly rabbis make laws for the sukkah.
Okay, so somebody else want to read? Verse 8?
Okay, the entrance to the middle, the side chambers, was on the right side of the house, and a winding stairs led up to the middle chambers, and from the middle chambers to the third story. That was pretty high. When he finished building the house, he paneled the house with beams and planks of cedar. He built the storied structure against the entire house, each story 5 cubits high, so that it encased the house with timbers of cedar. Then the word of God came to Solomon. With regard to this house you are building, if you follow my laws and observe my rules and faithfully keep my commandments, I will fulfill for you the promise that I gave to your father David. I will abide among the children of Israel, and I will never forsake my people Israel. When
Good.
Solomon,
Right? So here's God making this promise.
what I don't
Right.
understand is God said, I don't need a house to dwell in. I will be amongst you wherever you are. And now he's saying, I'm in this house. Okay.
Well, hold on. Is God saying he's going to live in the house?
No.
No,
No.
I will abide among you, but
Right? So verse 13. V'shachanti b'tof b'nei Yisrael. I will live amongst the people of Israel. V'lo e'azov et ami Yisrael. And I will not leave or depart or forget my people, the people of Israel. Why doesn't, if this is truly God's house, why isn't the text say, I'm going to live in the house?
it doesn't say that. It says, yeah. Interesting.
Well, we know that God is everywhere. So if it said God's going to live in the house, then we don't want to be thinking, well, that's you have to go there to find God. I don't know.
Okay. So who's the temple for ultimately?
For
Us.
people.
Yeah, we need it. God doesn't need it.
Right.
But by our building it and being committed to it and committed to all the ideals, the values, the ethics, the practices, all of that come out of having it, that allows God to live amongst us.
So that makes a weird comparison to idols. And that you worship an idol that you believe has a spirit with it. So the temple in itself is like an idol.
He told, with regard to this house you are building, if you follow my laws and observe my rules. He does not talk about house, he's talking about laws and observance of rules. And faithfully keep my commandments.
It's not as if the place is being worshipped. The place is used as a conduit through which we can experience God.
But are we misinterpreting that idols are being worshipped versus the idols are representations of God? I mean, we've always said that we don't need a temple to pray. You can pray anywhere.
Right.
But then we build a temple, we go to it. So it's just an interesting, as you just laid it out, were we misinterpreting people praying to idols, that they're praying to the idol versus they feel that the idol represents.
In non-monotheistic traditions, that stone is seen as divine
Okay.
and is
Even
God,
though it's man-made.
but it is God,
Okay.
right? It's not seen as a message from, or it is seen as the God,
Okay.
and it is worshipped as the God
Okay.
versus, the temple structure, which is seen as a way of fulfilling the commandments that God has given us.
In temple, it is place for community.
Not that good.
Just creating a sacred space in order
No,
to. Commandment.
No, sacred space is the temples that built here is different than the temple we built.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is place for community, the temple we build now. It was placed for worship and remembering. So it is was place that was given by God with commandments was inside this place it for the ark, and the words that remind us that God can communicate directly to the people. He don't talk to everyone because not everyone could listen, but if people listen, they can talk to the God and remind them that they can communicate with God, that God is not something abstract.
Okay. I'll buy it.
Okay. So keep reading. When Solomon.
Wait, hang on.
Nope, go ahead.
So if I'm going back to in Kings 2, David on his deathbed.
We're not at Kings 2 yet.
No, Kings chapter 2. 1 Kings
Chapter
2.
2. One,
Chapter 2. Got it. Okay.
Chapter 2, sorry. David on his deathbed, and see if this sounds familiar to what God is going to say directly to Solomon. David says, basically follow God's laws and God will fulfill the promise that was made concerning me if, quote, if your descendants are scrupulous in their conduct and walk before me faithfully with all their heart and soul, your line on the throne of Israel will last forever. Where did I? If your descendants are scrupulous in their conduct, doesn't that sound like what God has just said, repeated, but said it directly?
Mm-hmm. What verse are you on?
I am in verse 3.
Chapter 2, 3.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, that's exactly what he's saying, right?
Right.
So David is saying to Solomon,
follow God's rules and all will be well, and your descendants will, if your descendants in line 4, if your descendants are scrupulous in their conduct and walk before me faithfully with all their heart and soul, your line on the throne of Israel shall never end. God will protect you forever. And,
right.
And God finally does say it directly. It doesn't say it through David in 5.
Right, so David says, God told me this, Solomon believes, and now God speaking to Solomon directly, reiterating the promise.
Yes, that was my point. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. Great. So, when Solomon, somebody?
I'll read.
Please.
When Solomon had completed the construction of the house, he paneled the walls of the house on the inside with planks of cedar. He also overlaid the walls on the inside with wood from the floor of the house to the ceiling. And he overlaid the floor of the house with planks of cypress.
So this is incredibly ornate, right? We've got decorative paneling. Think 70s, right? No, God forbid.
That's coming back.
God
Look
forbid.
great.
Were they still dirt floors back then, or were they in most houses? Was it dirt floors back then still?
Probably, but it's
Because he's talking about wooden floors. I mean, that's really classy at that time.
Also, this came from Lebanon, which it didn't grow. I believe that they didn't have it in Israel, but it came from Lebanon.
Yeah, it's a schlep.
Right.
And that's not, it's not all that far, but also in the ancient time, it's far enough. I mean, you're not just going to Home Depot here.
Right, it came by boat probably, and they had to bring it inland from the ocean.
Right. And getting anything of substantial size or weight up to Jerusalem is no easy task.
Exactly.
We built pyramids. Moving a bit of wood is a lot of work. Sorry. It's context, purely context.
You also would wonder where the artisans that built this, where would they get the skill? This is almost 500 years after the Exodus. How did these people know how to do this? It's not like you can practice it with anything, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, look, they were building other things, right? I mean, they're designing something of opulence, but they're not designing something that is unique, right? They're describing something that we're supposed to understand what they mean. So when they say they're putting pretty walls and floors, and we're supposed to understand what that means. So it was being done in other places, right? This isn't something that's new. But it's very, very opulent for its time.
Actually, as I think about it, one other thing that came up last week was David dies, Solomon takes over, and we go from war to ultimate peace everywhere. And it was like a switch flipped. And it seems like right now, with all this going on, that they're able to just get wood from wherever and do it. I mean, where did the money come from? Or were just people just giving them the stuff, or were they taking it and we're just trying to make it look peaceful?
Well, they've now consolidated the empire, right? Solomon has consolidated everything.
And everything's peaceful. Everyone loves each other.
Everything is peaceful, which means everybody's paying taxes, because that's what peace means in the ancient world.
Okay.
Right. So everybody's money is flowing into the royal tax collector, right?
Okay. So that makes sense. They can go and get what they need because there's money to do. Okay. That's how we ended last time. It's like, how does it all of a sudden from warring time to everybody's peace? And Solomon was just that good. He said, okay, it's peace and it works. Suspend belief.
Well, I mean, cycles, right?
Okay. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. Keep going.
20 cubits from the rear of the house, he built a partition of cedar planks from the floor to the walls. He furnished its interiors to serve as a shrine, as the Holy of Holies.
Okay, so the Holy of Holies is what?
Where the ark is.
Right. So that's where the ark is kept. So the Holy of Holies is a small room in which the ark is kept.
Some giant warehouse.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Dun, 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 dun.
Sorry.
Okay.
What verse of one?
6.
Yeah.
16, rather. 16. So you've got this very small Holy of Holies. That's where the ark is. Who sees the ark?
The high priest.
High priest.
How many times a year?
Once.
Once.
Before.
Right. Yom Kippur is the only time high priest goes into the Holy of Holies. In fact, when the high priest goes in, they have to tie a rope around his middle, because if he has a heart attack or dies while he's there, nobody else can go in and get him, so they can haul him out by the rope. So they're taking it seriously, right? This is not simply a place you can just go and visit. Okay. Continue.
The front part of the house, that is the great hall, measured 40 cubits. The cedar of the interior of the house had carvings of gourds and calyxes. It was all cedar, no stone was exposed.
Okay, wait, let's do math. The first floor is
I think
5 cubits wide, but the front hall is 40 cubits.
5 cubits high.
5 cubits high, and then 6 cubits high, and then 7 cubits high. So that's what it was saying?
But the great hall is 40 cubits, could be long. Doesn't have to be. That's not,
The lowest story was 5 cubits wide. The middle one was 6 cubits wide, and the third 7 cubits wide.
Yeah.
How do you have a 40 cubit hall and a 5 cubit floor?
you ever see Doctor Who?
Yes, it's a TARDIS. That's it. It's a TARDIS.
We got it.
They're perfect. Okay, good.
And Eric's not even here to hear that. But no, that really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then it says the interior of the shrine was 20 cubits by 20 cubits by 20 cubits, but it's 5 cubits. So are these two different buildings?
No, it is in front, it is side of the building.
Maybe it's
It
just
is a house and it is like.
House and a shrine?
Yes, shrine, and it is.
Picture.
Well,
Before,
we're describing two different pieces, right? One, we're describing the Holy of Holies, which is the 5 cubits and the 7 and the, and then the front part of the house, that is the Great Hall, which is a whole different thing, is 20. This 40 cubit great enormous space.
And it could have been the outside, like an outside hall. And then you go into
I
where.
don't know how they got the picture, but there you go.
Somebody took a selfie.
I just was looking at a meme. It was a picture of the world's first camera.
3 separate structures. They just don't
structures.
announce it that way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Never mind.
Okay.
I shouldn't read so closely.
So Logan, I by next week I want you to start building out in the front there. We need to.
Yeah, you want one?
In gold.
In gold?
So that's what pictures.
Let's go.
Okay.
Good. All right, keep going.
I don't know where I'm at anymore.
18.
18. The cedar had the interior of the house, had carvings of gourds and calyxes.
What's a calyx?
It's the outside of a plant. It kind of wraps around and protects the plant. So if you think of like a rose, the outside, that green part that comes up and holds it together is the calyx.
And how do you know this?
Because I looked it up.
Okay, guys.
Because I looked at it and said, what's a calyx? And I looked it up.
Right. I had no idea. It was all cedar, no stone was exposed. The innermost part of the house was fixed. He fixed a shrine in which to place the Ark of God's covenant. The interior of the shrine was 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, 20 cubits high. He overlaid it with gold, solid gold. He similarly overlaid its cedar altar.
So this is about as opulent a structure as you're going to ever hope to find, right?
Bathroom.
You've got the this huge thing essentially that's overlaid with gold.
20 by 20. 20 cubits by 20
Yeah, it's
cubits.
40 feet by 40 feet by 40 feet.
It's a lot of gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it conjures up for me is the work of Egyptian artisans, and that they would have known, and it's gold leaf. And you need a substrate to put it on, and that would be wood. You might solid it, and sometimes they were using olive wood here, or cedar wood would be very dense, and it would be a good substrate for gold leaf, which would be very thin.
She does
Like
it.
the sarcophagus.
Could they get the gold leaf as thin as we have it now? Or would we?
It's pretty thin. I
Yes.
mean, they pound it thin.
Think about the sarcophaguses. Think about like King Tut's stuff.
Yeah.
It was not very thick. It was very
Yeah,
thin. It was
they-
almost paint thin. So yeah. And that was what, a couple hundred years before that.
You
Before
can
this.
buy now sheets of gold or silver to overlay some.
Well, now we have
design.
different technology, but back then they had to.
They hammer by hammer. They do this.
Well, whether they use a mechanical press or they're using a hammer, it's still the same process of hitting it until it's flat, pressing it until it's flat, right?
Most of them, they do it by hand.
Mhm.
Even now, you can buy on internet.
You do
And
it-
the sheets, they place paper between the sheets, and if you work some design and you need overlay, you can buy and you can do this.
Okay, so finish it up here, this paragraph. 21.
Hold on. So Solomon overlaid the interior of the house with solid gold, and he inserted gold chains into the door of the shrine. He overlaid the shrine with gold, so that the entire house was overlaid with gold. He even overlaid with gold the entire altar of the shrine, and so the entire house was completed.
Place to finish.
Okay. So this is a huge endeavor. This is not this is literally a royal palace. Right? And this is, the prayer space for the empire. And it's about as opulent as you could possibly imagine, right? I mean, he's literally papering the walls with gold. And even in the ancient world, that's no easy feat, right? That's a level of opulence that is not normal. And so, the statement is, this is a very, very, very special place.
And it's in a time of peace, because if it was a time of war, it'd be very hard to protect that. You probably couldn't build that in a time of war.
Well, and we know that, in other times, the tabernacle was removed out of Jerusalem to protect it.
Right.
Right. So here we're building a permanent place that we're going to store this thing. So, okay. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Great to see you all. Marcy, feel better.
No, you finish it. We're good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
over by the airport, which everyone said is really good too. I like the ramen at the Pokemon, all the good items.
Okay, but they don't have the same spicy.
You can get spicy, you have to actually specifically ask them. So for, I know Kim, who's the owner,
Oh, okay.
and she'll make me differently than she makes everybody else. So, I mean, our Pokemon is bad. We go up there and back down that Pokemon, and people use it. But when you do the ramen, you have to walk up and you go, and they didn't.